Hey guys, welcome back to the Chessyard. This is Bagga, and today I'll be showing you one of my games where I again played the London system and effectively against a stronger opponent. So, yeah, let's see how the game went. I started off with pawn d4, and my opponent responds with knight f6. Both are right now trying to take control of the center. Now, I also develop my knight on the f3 square, and he moves his pawn d5, trying to make sure that my pawns don't push forward. And now, if you see the board into two halves from rank 1 to 4 and rank 5 to 8, both are currently exactly symmetrical, identical. So that's why this opening is also known as the Queen's Pawn game, the symmetrical variation. However, in the next move, I developed my bishop on f4, and the game has now converted into the London system. Now, London system is a very interesting game, which I have already explained in one of my previous videos. I'm placing the link in the description below and also on the card above. So, just in case you want to understand the lines better, because here I'll probably going through the game quickly because I've already covered how the lines go in the London system. So, yeah, Black responds with pawn c6. He's trying to make sure that his pawn on d5 is getting extra protection. His center is being solidified, and so does white by moving pawn e3. He develops his light square bishop on f5, targeting the c2 square in future. And I also develop my knight on c3. And the idea behind this is that my minor pieces are out, only light square bishop remains, which will probably come up in the couple of next moves. Now he develops pawn e6, and here I played h3 first, so that he doesn't pin my knight by moving his bishop on the f4 square on the g4. And now he moves h6. If you see the result, the games over here right now. So one of the games played in 2018 against much stronger opponent like 2200 and 2400 rated players. This game went in the favor of white. So yeah, so far so good. I develop my bishop on d3, trying to go for the exchange because my bishop is probably not doing much here. Also, the bishops are very important for black more than the white, um, and so he doesn't take it straight away, but he rather offered his dark square bishop because his dark square bishop wasn't developed till now. So I capture it because my dark square bishop is not eyeing on the king side, and in this kind of a structure the opponent will definitely castle on the king side. So you require maybe a bishop which eyes on the diagonal towards the king rather than eyeing towards the king side on the queen side. So he captures back my dark square bishop, and now I'm trying to take control of the e5 square by placing my knight there. Now the knight controls a lot of space here. It's blocking the queen's path. It is also in future it is very helpful in attacking the f7 square. If the knight comes here, I can go for the exchange as well. So yeah, good place for the knight to be closer to the king. So he tries to go for the exchange by moving his knight on d7, and so I capture it with the idea that in next move I can go for the bishop capture as well probably, and then try to start advancing my pawns further. He captures with the knight. I capture the bishop. Now, in this exchange, what happened is his pawn structure got a bit bad here. Double pawns are never good for you. And that's what I thought of taking advantage on. Now, because I was playing a stronger opponent, my idea was to go for exchanges and probably find out one pawn extra somewhere and then go for the end game and clinch it from there. So now I develop my queen on f3, a good square. Now I'm attacking this pawn on f5. He responds with queen on e6, trying to protect the pawn. So now I move pawn g4 with the idea that now you have to capture it, and once the f and g files are open, I can go for a much stronger attack here. And that's what happened. He captured the pawn because he didn't have any other option. Because if he would have moved his pawn, suppose he moves his pawn on g6. Then again I can go for the capture. This will be much worse for him. He has to exchange the queen, then his pawn structure is already doubled. So here white would be comfortable to win, though it will go in the end game. The computer also suggests it's zero point 0.6 in the favor of white, so it was not a good idea for him to exchange queens there. So he didn't. He captured the pawn instead. I capture back with my pawn so that my H file is now opened. If I would have gone with the queen, then probably I would. I'm making sure that my queen is also gone. So rather, I chose to open up the H file here. Now he opened up his queen side pawn by moving it b5. I go back to the e2 with my knight, trying to get some movement for my knight because here the knight isn't doing much on the c3. So I moved it on e2. Then the plan is probably to attack the queen from f4 or even go on the g3 square later on. Now he has to finally move his pawn on g5 so that I do not come on the with my knight on f4 and attack the queen. So he rather chose to move his b5 pawn, and I now develop my knight on the g3 with the idea that now I can hop in on the f5 later on, or maybe even h5. It can be useful by going to h5. I can then challenge I can actually fork his king and queen by going on the g7 square. So suppose he would have missed a move here. I would just show the lines one. Suppose he moves this. I can go here. He moves. He moves his rook here, trying to align in the center. And now I can fork. So the chance would always be there to fork. You never know what opponent misses. So yeah, develop your plans in a better way. So yeah, let's come back to the main line where we were in the game. Now he castles on the queen side. Now this was again bad for him because his queen side pawns are already way developed for king's safety to be there. So I started off attacking on the queen side now by moving pawn a4. Now he has to go for the capture, and if he doesn't, I will capture, and the a file will also get opened. So he didn't capture, he actually crossed the pawn in this situation. And this was also helpful for me because now I can get my queen in a better square, which is the e2, and then go for this diagonal check, and then probably try to take away this pawn on a7 and get the attack going on the queen side where the king has castled. So he now takes his queen on d6 with the idea that probably he's thinking that his pawn can be in some danger here. He also is trying to make sure that he's towards his king, so that if I challenge him with the queen, he can probably move around and then exchange the queens here, because otherwise it will be deadly for black. So now I take my knight on f4. Now my knight has again moved towards the king. It is threatening the queen here, so the queen has to be moved. Queen goes to the c7 square. Now I block the pawn first because I don't want this pawn to further advance, and then I go for the exchange. His queen is already on the c file, can quickly come on the b file and start attacking my king, which is in the center till now. So now he goes to the f6 square with his knight. Now the knight's next move will definitely be e4, because he will try to take control of this open file for him, because this knight can then probably in future, if I try to kick it away with the f3, can fork my queen and rook. These things can simply happen in any kind of a game. I'll just show the lines quickly once. Suppose I move a4, his knight can come here and on the e4, and if I threaten this with my pawn, he can then come over here. Though it's protected by my knight, but he has then a queen also coming in. So this will be not good for white here. I will be losing on some advantage. And then probably my attack is also a bit weakened here. Rather, I chose here to castle on the queen side, so that now the rooks are in front of each other, just in case the and this d file gets opened, because his next plan could have been to move the c5 pawn. Also, by moving my b3 pawn, I have made sure that the pawn structure is very solid and the black cannot penetrate through. So now he comes on the e4 as expected, and now I get my rook on the h3 square, making sure that if I get a chance to align my rooks on the h file, that is very much feasible, so that I can now start entering from the h file, because the AB files are already blocked with the pawn structure here. So he now threatens to. He now actually forks my rook and queen. So the only way to get rid of the fork is that you move one of your pieces first and give a check. That's what I did by moving my queen on a6. Here he tries to take away his rook, his king on the d file, and so I now align my rooks on the h file with the idea that now I can capture on the h6 anytime in the next move, and there's no way that it can be stopped from here as of now, because I have three attacks. Even if he tries to defend with the queen, which will actually be bad because I can even capture with my knight. So there are three attacks on the h6 and cannot be stopped. He has only one defender, so he rather thought of moving his knight on the e3, on the e4, with the plan that if I do not take on the h6 right away, he can actually fork both my rooks on h1 and h3. But I went for the attack and took away the pawn on h6. Now he has to capture back. He captures back with the rook, and I capture the rook back again with my rook. Now, the thing is that the sixth rank is completely controlled by me. I can give him a check in future with the rook. If the queen moves somewhere from here, this pawn will be a deadly check. If I capture this with the queen, there would be probably a mate happening here very quickly. So yeah, I have entered the opponent's court with all my pieces. This is going to be bad for black. Now he keeps his queen on b6 with the idea that he's asking for the exchange here, because exchange would be good for him. And since it's good for him, so we will not go for the exchange. So I take back my queen on the f3 with the idea that now it can probably go from f3 to h3 and then enter the opponent's court simply. Also, this queen move saved my f pawn, because had I captured the queen and exchanged there, my f pawn would have been gone, and then probably g4 was also in danger, and then that would have given black some hope from there. So he gets his queen back on the c7 square, because actually he has to move something and he didn't find any better move there. Now I tried to kick away this knight from here, and he goes and sits on the c3, but he's not threatening anything here. So now I can probably go for the attack. So I directly pushed my rook on the h7 with the idea that I can capture on the f7 next, and that comes with a check. So his queen would be in danger. He saw that coming, so he moved his king to e6. And now, as part of my plan, it was so I moved my queen to h3. Now I'm aggressive, and I will be moving my queen to h6, and that will be very nasty for the king. That doesn't look much good for him. So he tries to give me a check, tries to delay the threats that are already there on his side. So I move my king to safety behind the pawn. Good pawn, solid structure on the b2. Now he moves his rook, trying to make sure that if I keep my queen on h6, he can probably get his rook in between. So I move to the h6 square as part of the plan, and he defends with his rook. So here, computer is suggesting that it's a move, it's a mate in next six moves. So that's when you find the best moves. So I found the best move here. Move to f8 square. It's now mate in five. He tries to bring his queen on the d7 with the idea that he can probably control things a bit better if he's closer to the king. Now I capture on f7. and now he has to take away my rook so that he will try to go for the exchange here. Anyways, computer suggesting it's mate in two. You can pause the video once and try to find what will the best continuation here. All right, so we'll continue with the game. He captures on the rook with his queen, and I give him a checkmate from d6. Now the king has nowhere to go, and the game ended well for me despite being a rook down right now. As compared to the pieces count. But yes, the game was very solid. Uh, Now, this tells us how important and advantageous is the London system. Because I had control of the center throughout the game, you see that nothing has got penetrated from the center here. None of the black pieces are part of my code apart from this pawn on b4, which is pretty much useless. This knight is also isn't doing much over here. So yeah, a strong game from White. I hope you like the game. Try playing the London system. Do check out how these lines work for White, and I hope you'll continue to like and share the videos. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.